And EU, and this is where we're starting, had a political earthquake yesterday, an absolute routing of the left-wing parties. The Green parties are collapsing across the EU. France is going into an election. Germany's going into an election. All sorts of crazy stuff. Dublin has, there's some Irish elections that went off yesterday or the day before, that elected some people who are anti-immigration. So the pendulum is swinging back hard and fast, and Justin Trudeau seems to be in the way, which is great. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we're starting in France, and this is the sound of freedom in France, right? If you can but believe it. Here are French patriots singing in celebration because Marie Le Pen routed Macron in yesterday's EU elections, forcing Macron to call a snap election that's going to happen on June 30th. Here's the French patriots. And it's all French flags. There's no Palestinian flags, no Israeli flags, no Ukrainian flags, no other flags whatsoever. It's all French flags, and they're singing because they're encouraged, maybe hopeful for once for their country. Peter Sweden says French President Macron has announced he is dissolving parliament and will hold a snap election. This comes after the right-wing national rally led by Marine Le Pen got a massive victory in the EU elections, projected to win 31.5% of the votes. She overperformed. She won more than that, hitting 32.4%. In 2019, her party got 23.3%, and Macron's party in 2024 got 15.2%. In 2019, they got 22.4%. So razor's edge. They lost last time, and they lost in a routing this time. Absolute destruction. Concerned Canadian says Le Pen won big due to her platform of anti-immigration and de-Islamification. Thoughts? Can we have some of that, please? Wall Street Silver says Macron dissolves French parliament and calls for new election. In the wake of huge losses to the far right in European Union elections, President Macron has dissolved the French parliament and called for new elections. The move suggests Macron's acknowledgement of the public no longer supporting his government or his policies. So that's interesting to see. We'll see how that all plays out. The food professor is watching this too. He's responding to himself. The first tweet says, the European Union elections, marked by a surge of far right in many countries, have caused a political earthquake in France without disrupting the political balance in Brussels. France has now called for a snap election on June 30th. Now, I'll disagree with the food professor here. I don't think any of this is far right. Yesterday, I read a tweet that said what's far right now was considered centrist and common sense 20 years ago. And yes, that is absolutely true. None of what's happening right now is evil far right people taking control, etc. This is normal people saying milk didn't used to be $10 for 4 liters. It just didn't. Milk and butter didn't used to be $10 a pound. Yogurt didn't used to be so expensive. All of these things are because of bad policy, bad liberal policy, bad globalist policy. But it's not far right to sit there and think to yourself, I had more money a few years ago, and this is intolerable because I'm not going to accept this wholesale theft directly from my wallet via tax. Right? And so far right, I don't think so, food professor. Anyway, the food professor continues, what the EU elections are telling us tonight is that the West is growing weary of socialist and urban-centric policies that affect agriculture and agri-food sectors. Yeah, we're growing sick and tired of traitors running our countries. I think that's mainly what it is, actually. Continuing our tour of the elections yesterday, Jack Straw says Bavarian Prime Minister Söder calls on the German government to dissolve parliament. The politician said that it is necessary to hold early elections after the failure of the ruling coalition in the European Parliament elections. Basically, this government is over, and now it should be like in France. There were demands for early elections, and Macron announced them there. Söder's opposition Christian Socialist Union Party wins the elections to the European Parliament, seriously ahead of its competitors from the ruling coalition. Second place goes to the right alternative for Germany party. So all of that's interesting. Here's another one. Belgium globalist prime minister was resoundingly defeated in the elections. Just another example of citizens rejecting their WEF leftist agenda and moving to the right. Canada will be next. Hopefully our right wing is full of patriots, but again, I'm not holding my breath unless Bernier gets elected, in which case that would be great. I'd love to see Bernier put together cabinet level people. I'd love to see Bernier shopping finance minister, shopping financial policy. I mean, just talking about stopping taxes and stopping foreign aid, et cetera, is great. But if you can have, like, I was lamenting yesterday that provincially we don't have a vehicle to put our efforts into. Federally, an argument could be made that the PPC is not a viable vehicle. Some people think it is. I didn't want the argument to get into PPC versus not PPC. Do you think the PPC is a viable vehicle federally to put our energies into to do what's happening in Europe? Do you think that that is a realistic expectation or no? Why or why not, right? My concerns is at this point in time, it's Bernier and some candidates, and he's got somebody running in the latest by-election that's been announced. But you don't have a group of 10 or 15 people who are saying this is the vision of Canada we're trying to deliver, right? Maybe I'm expecting too much. Am I expecting too much? I don't think so, but maybe I am. I don't think you can create a party with just one or two people. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, not to say PPC is one or two people, but I'm saying, like, as core candidate people to shop, as people to put out and say, this is our economic policy. This person is a rock star on the same level as Bernier, and is going to be the finance minister, is going to be, and maybe not even on the same level as Bernier, but is well known, right? Viva Frei kind of filled those shoes, but again, he's not finance minister material. He's just well known. So, right? It's just one of those things that I think about. I don't think that we've got a clear vision of exactly how this will look. Whereas, like, Nigel Farage has been pretty clear, and he's got the Reform Party beneath him now. And so there is more than just Nigel Farage in that, right? Right? So I don't know. I'm concerned that we don't have a viable party. Province-wide, we don't have a viable party in Ontario, period. We don't. But federally, do we? What do you think? I don't know. Dr. Eli says, good riddance, terrorism supporting Prime Minister of Belgium, Alexander De Croo. May your legacy rot in the trash can of history. So he's all crying here. He's all sad. Boo-hoo, right? I'm not sad. Bye. Right? See you later, bud. Klaus says, Ireland, Dublin just elected a hardline anti-immigration candidate as their city councilman. Changes in the air. European voters are rejecting mass immigration. So that's good. He's being lifted up by his constituencies. There you go. So wonderful, right? Wonderful news-ish, right? I hope that it continues to spread. Zachary is talking about the traitors in our country running our government, and he says Canada's parliament needs to be dissolved as well. And until the traitors are named, and are named no incumbent, and the incumbent is just the person holding the seat right now, the last person elected. So no incumbent, because it's likely that they were helped by China, should be allowed to run for re-election, should be able to stand for re-election, right? I agree. I think that that's common sense. And I can't believe that there's any kind of hesitation. There's any kind of hesitation to tell people who these traitors are. Here's Tamara Litch and Chris Barber. And I said to them, we should have a trucker party. And he said, that's a great idea. But treason in Canada, they say politicians return to work tomorrow, still no names. So how can you go to work? And they're going to work and pretending like it's just business as usual, right? Normal everyday life. And it's not, because, hey, treason, like, that's a big problem for people who are not committing treason. It is. Here's Tamara Litch and Chris Barber.
Sunday night reminder that it's that a whole pile of people are going to be going to work tomorrow in Ottawa, including the ones that committed what?
High treason.
Yeah.
High treason, but it wasn't mischief.
No, not mischief. No. But it's okay to do high treason in this country as long as you're a politician.
Correct.
And no names yet.
No names.
We've got some issues in this country.
Did you know that people that donated to the event that shall not be named had their names, addresses, phone numbers, home addresses published, leaked to the media and published?
It's like the federal government endorsed hackers, I guess.
Yeah.
Stealing people's private information.
It's almost like they paid hackers to do that.
It's almost like they did. The corruption runs really deep in this country.
Yeah.
When are people going to wake the hell up?
Got to get that fixed.
It ends when we say it ends.
It ends when we say it ends.
Keep those thoughts coming.
Love you guys.
We love the mean tweets, by the way. We know we're hitting the mark. We know we're flying over the target when you're taking the most amount of flack. It's funny the amount of shit we're taking from certain people out there that are butthurt beyond belief.
Hilarious.
Love it.
Bye.
So that's interesting, right? The winds of change seem to be blowing everywhere. They were talking about the information that was gleaned from the hacked database from the Give, Send, Go, or the GoFundMe, and that was published, and the government responded by freezing people's bank accounts if you donated to the trucker convoy, which is pretty incredible. Without trial or conviction, they were doling out punishments that, I mean, people convicted murderers like Bernardo didn't get, right? Does what's his name, Russell Williams, have access to his bank account still? Nobody sees that, did they? Weird. So all of that said, I think that it's interesting that the government of Canada was just fine with using hacked information against its own citizens. And again, we don't get names of traitors, and CSIS is ringing the bell saying every single prime minister from Mulroney on has been infiltrated by China, and we're all supposed to sit around and listen to lying liberals say no, it's fine. That's what they're expecting, and it looks very likely that the media is going to do exactly that. And so there'll be a couple of people, holdouts, who report on this story, but they'll shut us down the way they always do. Lion Advocacy says this is an important headline. It wasn't just MPs who were helping foreign actors, it was lawmakers. For the past few years, many laws, regulations, and orders in council didn't have a made in Canada look and feel. They appeared to be designed by or for the benefit of foreign entities. This is a Globe and Mail headline. Ottawa won't name lawmakers accused of aiding top foreign actors. So they've infiltrated all the way down to like city staff level lawmakers? Or are we just talking about one or two political parties like the NDP, the CPC, the Greens, obviously, the Liberals? No other political parties and no other lawmakers? Or what are we talking about here? And the speculation makes it impossible to have any kind of faith in the legislation passed by our government, right? Like, oh, we're just going to censor the internet now. Okay, great. Thanks, Justice Minister. That kind of violates all of our basic rights. But okay, you're not working for China or anything, are you? Here's Seven Love, and it says 2016 Trudeau invited Liberal donors to official dinner for Chinese Premier Arif Varini, the Justice Minister I was just referencing. Many of the Liberal donors have direct dealings with China, either through their businesses, law firms, lobbying activities, or close connections to the Chinese government. And then this is November 28, 23. Arif Varini, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, 7th member of the National Security Council and MP for the largest concentration of Tibetans outside of Asia, has rejected a standalone registry of foreign agents. Open net, Varini chooses not to shoot. So he doesn't need the foreign, he doesn't need any kind of, what's it called? Registry, right? He doesn't need that. Why do we need that? Oh, because of the rampant treason happening in our country? Well, I guess he just can't see that, but he can see the hacked database of donors from the trucker convoy, right? No problem there. No vision issues there. It's like having an ADHD kid who can play video games for 6 hours straight and not move. Yeah, they definitely have attention deficit disorder for sure. That's a real problem. Maybe your lesson's crap. Maybe the kids are bored. Teachers don't like hearing that. Okay, Andrew Scheer is responding to this whole treason thing, and he sent a letter. He says the NSICOP report says that some parliamentarians have wittingly worked for foreign governments. Today, Conservatives called for the public inquiry to be expanded. Ooh, a public inquiry? I can't wait. Another one? Oh, yes, please. How much is this one going to cost? Expanded so the names of the parliamentarians can be made public. This needs to happen to restore faith in our democracy. I think we just need to see arrests and perp walks and the government to fall. I think we need to see the government fall. And if we could have a trucker party before the next election, that'd be great. I think there's enough time to spin one up. $20 million in 2 weeks? Man, I'm sure I could do something with that. I wouldn't know what to do with that. I'd be a dog with catching a car. I wouldn't have any clue what to do with it. It would be terrible. $20 million is orders of magnitude more than I've had to deal with. So asking me to spend that for a political campaign I would not spend it effectively. If I fear. Anyway, regardless of all of that, I still feel like the political ability of something like that, a vehicle like that, may be exactly what Canada needs. Anyway, here's part of the letter. He says, like all Canadians, we've been shocked by the findings of the special report on foreign interference in Canada's democracies, processes and institutions of June 3rd, 2024, the special report by the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, NSICOP, with respect to foreign interference. The special report found that some parliamentarians are, in the words of the intelligence service, semi-witting or witting participants, treason, in the efforts of foreign states to interfere in our politics. This includes activity that clearly meets the definition of foreign interference as described in Section 2 of the CSIS Act, contrary to Canada's national interest, and descriptive, clandestine, or threatening. Deceptive, clandestine, or threatening. Sorry, it's very small. I'm not having a hard time reading it, but it's smaller than usual. A textbook example of foreign interference that saw a foreign state support witting politician. That some elected officials, however, began wittingly assisting foreign states actors soon after their election, and a then member of parliament who sought to arrange a meeting in a foreign state with a senior intelligence official and also proactively provided the intelligence officer with information provided in confidence. So, that's spying, right? These findings of fact would not constitute findings of criminal guilt, but would be intended to serve as an aid to the House and the Senate in their exercise of their respective privileges, immunities, and powers to each political party whose members may be impacted, and above all to the Canadian public to strengthen its confidence in our public institutions. We request that the House Commission be provided with all of the unredacted evidence on which the special report was based and all necessary resources to allow it to carry out interviews and any further investigations required to assess the findings of the special report, and that, if necessary, the terms of reference of the House Commission be expanded to allow it to make the findings of fact described above. One of the things that is interesting to me on this is when Scheer's talking about allowing us to carry out interviews and all the rest of that. They haven't been able to interview about things we know that have already gone wrong. They've brought witnesses in, and we're trying to find out about Arrive scam, all the rest of that kind of stuff. And things get closed down regularly, right? Where's the $600 million? Shut down. So these investigations aren't working. It's not beneficial. They sound beneficial. It sounds like really strong parliamentary language, right? But the practical side of things don't work out that way. And when you watch it on camera, the Liberals and the NDP just shut it all down. And so how many of those can we just endure before it all just sounds like nonsense words and distractions? Because it sounds like we're being distracted. Tamara Litch is responding to this whole thing. She says, sorry, Andrew, Canadians have suffered through and paid for enough public inquiries, which are nothing more than political make-work projects. Yeah, I agree with that. If you want to restore faith in democracy, then do the right thing and serve the people who put their faith in you, who believed in you, and who elected you. Treason is a criminal offense. Do your job and protect the Canadian people who have trusted you. You think the people of this country exist to provide you with position. I think your position exists to provide these people with freedom. Yep. Here is CTV News. They say no agreement among parties to releasing the names of witting foreign interference participants. So that's good indication. That's good evidence that every single one of these parties has somebody paid by China or other foreign people to be involved in Canadian politics. Where were you born? Iran? Oh, okay. Next, where were you born? Pakistan? Oh, next, where were you born? Somewhere in India? Oh, okay. Yeah, foreign interference? You don't have to look far, really. Honestly, it's very, very interesting. Witting? Well, what's witting? I mean, Han Dong talks about calling back channels to have to share information about what was going on in Liberal caucus, right? So like there's a lot of really, really interesting things going on here, and none of the parties want to agree to release the names. What? Who cares? If somebody's committed treason, you don't say, hey, do you mind if we release the names? They've committed treason. Release the freaking names. They should be arrested. You should announce the names after they've been arrested. These people are talking about how it's way more complicated than that. This is Jennifer O'Connell. She's the only one really talking during this. Her and Vassy get into a bit of back and forth. It's 4 minutes long. We'll listen to about a minute of it. They're trying to make the case that we don't need to know about this. They're trying to make the case that national security, blah, 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 blah. We don't really need to give you any more information than you got already. Blah, 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 blah. Here it is.
Additional insight. But the same challenges around intelligence to evidence also exist if there was to somehow be a list of names released without context and ensuring that any sort of intelligence is also corroborated. We think that the rule of law in this country and democracy relies on the fact that there needs to be that evidence.
These people froze bank accounts using a hacked database without charge or conviction. And now they're saying Chinese traitors who are working with foreign government, I don't know Chinese, maybe just traitors who are working with foreign government, need a rule of law and respect of their privacy in order to defend themselves against this, rule of law, rule of law, rule of law. They're hiding behind our justice system while they wipe their behinds with our rights and use our justice system against us. Do you understand this? Do you understand how egregious this is? This is jaw-droppingly unbelievable. I can't believe Michael Chong sat here the whole time and didn't say a damn word. Are you kidding me?
Needs to be that independent investigation, but we are allowing for leaders, and I believe the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, as well as Elizabeth May, the Green leader, have agreed to have their security clearance continue and read the...
So the Green leader and the NDP leader have agreed to have their security clearance continue, and they're going to find out about all the parliamentarians and the details, and then they're not going to be able to talk about it. And so it's a trap. And so these people are liars. They don't give a crap about rule of law. They don't give a crap about anything other than covering up for the crimes that they've committed. They've been caught and they're playing for time, in my opinion. And we're giving it to them. I don't know why. Where's Pierre Poilievre? Is he going to talk? Is he going to speak out about all of the crazy immigration news that's come out over the last week? We had a kitchen table talk yesterday, and I was saying, what are these 4 things? Like, what are these 4 bits of information that Pierre Poilievre is ignoring? And then Kinster was able to say, hey, like, there's a whole bunch of things that have happened in the last week about immigration that nobody's really talking about. And I was like, you're totally right. So yeah, but we've all talked about it, right? Like it's all of these new policies. How many Gazans coming in, so on and so on and so on. Pierre Poilievre, crickets, right? Laurie Goldstein says, no hope for the Liberals winning next federal election with Trudeau as leader, says pollsters, right? So, well, our elections are not above board. Our elections are not legitimate. So I think that we tick and talk. And if you tick to the Liberals and talk back to the Conservatives, the leader of each party is on board with whatever the plan is. And the plan is the 2030 agenda. And they do it differently, right? They'll do it by different mechanisms. But fundamentally, the 2030 agenda is the end goal. And so we don't have actual representative control of our government, whether it be a democracy or whatever else you want to call it. I don't think it's a democracy. We shouldn't be striving for a democracy. But control of our government, yes. We think we have control, but the reality is you don't get to be leader of the party in Canada unless you are kowtowing to the globalist 2030 agenda. I think that's it. So like if the Liberals don't win and Pierre Poilievre wins and we continue doing this stuff, it's the same. It's same. Like there's no real change. Maybe things will cost a little bit less. Maybe the carbon tax will be gone, but there's going to be other pain. There's going to be other censorship. You know what they're going to do for censorship? They're going to say anti-Semitic speech is not okay online. And so we're going to bring in this ID to make sure people online are safe from anti-Semitic speech or whatever. That's my prediction. They're going to transform this alt-right boogeyman into the pro-Palestinian anti-Semitic boogeyman, and people are going to say, yeah, let's protect ourselves from that, and then get bamboozled into that. Anyway, here's the difference between democracy and a democratic, and a constitutional republic. And I think it's super important to understand this because, like, I did a piss poor job the other day talking about the difference, and I was saying the republic is better, but I don't know why. This guy says why very eloquently. Here we go.
Family members tell you that democracy is what makes up America. It is not. We are a constitutional republic. Let me break down the difference, okay? In a democracy, the will of the majority would override or take away the rights and privileges of the minority. In a constitutional republic, such as America, we elect representatives who go ahead of us and enact laws to protect the rights of individuals against the will of the so-called majority. This is why America has been set apart from any other country. Do you want to know what involves a democracy? Communism. See, this is a word that's tossed around because these people want to get rid of capitalism and go into socialism and ultimately become communism. Well, I got good news for you. People are not fleeing in droves from constitutional republic countries. They are fleeing from democratic countries that are now communist. Cuba, North Korea, Vietnam, name it. Talk to the people that are coming from these countries. Democracy isn't something you want. You think you want it. Imagine if 70% of America was Christian and we all voted according to our religion and we were a democracy. Imagine how that would put you. The only reason why you're able to believe the way you believe, speak the way you're able to speak, and do the things you're able to do is because we are a republic and not a democracy. So, will you please stop saying that? Because it makes you look crazy. So next time you hear somebody say Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, tell them, I know and I'm glad. Because Lord knows Biden is a threat to the republic. When people
I like people who can utilize language like that, right? Take you on a little bit of a journey. That was less than 2 minutes. And he bent us around and then straightened us right back up and then utilized the point that he made in his final statement. Beautiful, beautiful, top notch. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about the capital gains tax. Chrystia Freeland says, tomorrow, our government is taking action to improve tax fairness. It's not improving tax fairness. For all Canadians, they say. We want to live in a country where we make the investments we need in housing, affordability, and economic growth, and where fairness prevails for all generations. So they're going to take money from people who have money upon their death and then give that money to spend in housing and affordability and economic growth. Right, sure. And if you don't like that, you're the problem. Brian Lilly says, if you don't vote for capital gains tax hikes, Freeland hints democracy itself will be at stake as average people revolt. What a bizarre speech today. It is a bizarre speech today. Here's the speech. It's 1:49 and it's crazy and just keeps getting crazier. Here's Chrystia Freeland. I almost used, it didn't quite work. And without this context, it's not funny. So I almost used it as the title, because it would be funny once you got the context, but I couldn't get the phrasing right. So anyway, regardless, here's Chrystia Freeland being completely bonkers. Here we go. Oh, it might be too loud. Hold on. I'll turn it down and then I'll get the volume right.
But I would also like to ask Canada's 1%. In fact, Canada's 0.13% to consider this. What kind of a Canada do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a country where kids go to school hungry? Do you want to live in a country where a teenage girl gets pregnant just because she doesn't have the money to buy birth control? Do you want to live in a country where the only young Canadians who can buy their own homes are those with parents who can help with the
So wait, birth control is affordable, but homes are not?
down payment? Do you want to live in a country where we make the investments we need in healthcare, in housing, in old age pensions, but we lack the political will to pay for them and choose instead to pass a ballooning debt onto our children? Do you want to live in a country where those at the very top live lives of luxury, but must do so in gated communities behind ever higher fences, using private health care and airplanes, because the public sphere is so degraded and the wrath of the vast majority of their less privileged compatriots burns so hot? Every Canadian...
Like as hot as their jet fuel? Do they have a private grocery store in their gated communities? Do they have an airport in the gated communities? How do I get into one of these gated communities? Do any of them exist, or is this just in your brain there, in your fantasy, Christia Freeland?
Across our great country needs to ask themselves these same questions, because the stakes could not be higher.
I don't know if we've got gated communities with airplanes and like rich people who are so mad at the underclass, and then they retreat from the underclass to their airplanes. You know, I mean, how bad could it be if you were the upper class with the airplanes? That is not even close to being in touch with reality, right? Like is she thinking like the Davos class is going to be like 1 or 2 people out of 1,000 or 10,000 people are going to be in these gated communities? Do you think that that's plausible? I just don't. I just don't. And I don't, because there are a lot of people who live comfortably who won't let that happen. Like there are a lot of rich people who aren't at the level of airplanes and gated communities who won't let that happen, right? Unless it's a global meltdown. But if it's a global meltdown, you don't then say, oh, well, I guess we have to say poor and starving for 10 years. You cut off the sick limb, and then you figure out food production for your own country, which is why they needed climate change, because then you can't then figure out, food production for your own country, because if you do that, you're violating all the climate change rules and all the rest. But fundamentally, if there's a catastrophic meltdown and people start starving, people will figure out what they need to do to stop starving, because that's an untenable situation. I mean, we're in an untenable situation right now, and people like in the EU are trying to solve it through elections. But Christia Freeland is wanting to raise taxes and saying, if you don't want to raise taxes, man, like things are going to get very, very bad. And it's not genuine. It's not honest. It certainly sounds crazy, right? Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful